And we're live.
And we're live. All right, thanks for coming back. Obviously, some didn't enjoy it. We don't have a full house this time, so hopefully by the end of these sessions, we'll have maybe one person. That's it, so we'll see how it goes. No, thanks for coming back. We're going to look at session 2 of a toolbox for an architect. We're also going to touch base on the first session. We missed a few areas on the backside there. We're going to touch base on with RFIs and ASIs. Both Chip and I do have appointments after this, so we're going to try and keep it tight so we can get out of here to our next meetings. I know you guys have some stuff to do too. So. Just wanted to regroup on our toolbox format. Remember, goals of what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to go from a push to a pull culture, right? Everybody kind of understands what that means, more or less? Can anybody explain it to Katie? Katie was not here last time. Who wants to volunteer? Richard, can you're so eloquent. Go ahead and give it up. Tell Katie how we're going from a push to a pull culture. In between bites, it's okay. Hang on.
There's Bob's here. He can give it a try.
So we need the Jeopardy music.
The suspense is killing me. Well, that was a big bite. The graphic up there is pretty simple, you know.
Do we want a lifeline, Richard? Drew is going to be your lifeline.
There you go.
Go ahead.
So the idea of a push to pull culture, the way you can talk about it is like information, right? So a lot of times PMs are trying to pull information out of people, and they really want these like us production people to actually push that information out and actually be proactive. So that's the way I see this push-pull culture. I know we kind of see it on different levels, but we really want people to like pull the culture forward productively as a group here instead of the company just pushing us in a direction where they want the culture to be. So it's more of a grassroots type of culture.
I like it. I like it. Sometimes it's easier to push, or sometimes we tend to push a big mass, and a mass being a crowd of people, and a lot of times the periphery falls off. But if we go out in front and we lead the way, we try and pull the people. We know we're going to lose some people, but we also have more of a focus, and we can be the confident leader in that aspect. So that's kind of where we're trying to hit with that. The second one is this is a great conversation, and we're trying to learn about ourselves. So it's an open dialogue. Not just here to talk first, we're here to listen first. And we challenge each other when we have conversations that we want to make sure we're hearing what each other's saying. And then we can reply back, not just think of what we want to say while they're talking. Or crumbling their paper bag. Okay. Going back to session 1, we did not talk about how we modify those contract documents. We talked about what the contract documents are, which are specifications, addenda, and CDs, construction documents. How do we modify these? These are tools we use to modify those documents. Can we just verbally tell someone, hey, yeah, that's good, go ahead, go, and you're off and running? No, a lot of times we'll get phone calls from a contractor, and that's what they want. But our due diligence is to go back to these contract documents and make sure that it is paper trailed. So when we as-built it, or when we give our O&Ms to the owner at the end, there is a paper trail for every change in that building and what we issued. A lot of times, building inspectors, after they issue permits, they will not allow the contractor to move forward with the work unless they see ASK or an ESK or some drawing that comes from the engineer or architect that changes those documents that shows that correction. So keep that in mind. So what does that mean to us? It means we got to be timely. Construction does not wait. They are out there building. So if we can't get them an answer in a timely fashion, they are forced to move forward, or they are forced to blame us as a delay. And we never want that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. When we see an ASI come across our desk or an RFI come across our desk, we need to answer it in a timely fashion. Our typical turnaround is what for an RFI? But, Alan?
1 to 2 days.
1 to 2 days is preferred. Yes, that is the ideal time frame. Typically in the specs it says 7 days. Okay, but just so you understand, 1 to 2 days is preferred. The quicker we can get it back, the better the relationship. Also, the contractor knows once we start to get responsive, they're going to be more timely and giving us more time up front. Okay. Yes.
Or just, I don't know if you're going down the list, but do you ever issue ASKs without it being an ASI? You know, I mean.
Great question. It's a great question.
Or maybe it's part of an RFI.
So, first off, does everyone understand the terminology I have out here? RFI. Do you know what an RFI stands for?
Request for information.
Request for information. Does everybody know what ASK stands for?
Architectural supplemental sketch.
Yes. Architectural supplemental information or sketch, right? So then we go to an ASI, the K goes to a information, right? Architectural supplemental information. Is an ASK the only form we issue to contractors? What changes on an ASK? It's the first letter. What changes? It turns to an S. What is an SSK? What is an ESK? What is an MSK? Very good. That's how they'll label those. When your contractors or when your engineers are sending you back sketches, make sure we look at that, because once we start that format, we need to roll with that format. Okay? Don't take it for granted that they know exactly what they're sending you. They're sending you the information correctly, but they're not always formatting it correctly. So keep that in mind. Okay? ASIs. Yes, ASI is a grouping of sketches or different type of information that we officially issue. Okay, so the RFI comes from the contractor, right? The ASK or the ASI comes from the architect. All right, engineers do not issue anything to the contractor. I don't care if we have no information we're issuing. We are the only ones we issue to the contractor. So if they're just going to give a couple mechanical sketches, we still create an ASI that actually groups those together, and then we issue it out. When I say we, that is Kimbry.
So what if it's in response to an RFI? Can we just have that be the RFI response for the sketches?
Great question. So RFI, I need to issue an SK because it changes the drawings. The answer to your question is yes, Sue, you can do that. However, it goes back to our first statement. The only reason we are doing that is for a timely response, right? Because we know it's time-sensitive information. We need to technically follow it up with an ASI. Okay? It has to then be followed up with an ASI that states, yes, this sketch was in a form and this is why they track it. Now the contractor, something parallel happened when we give this information. What is happening on the contractor side?
Change orders, maybe?
Yes. They're tracking dollar amounts, right? Because we are changing the documents that they bid. Now, sometimes there are $0 amount changes. Sometimes they're just field changes, but sometimes they're actually scope changes or additions that they then will assign COAs or change order authorizations, AUAs, all that to these different types to be able to track those monies, and then we'll review those in the meetings. Everyone understand that?
It's also time.
What's that?
It's also time, not just money.
Correct. Correct.
And it can be a subtraction.
Absolutely. It could be a deduction or an addition. It does not necessarily have to be it. So keep that in mind. So as we're doing CA, we're always running a tally saying, hey, I'm 1 up, I'm 2 down, I'm 3 up, I'm 2 down. So you start to make some adjustments as you go through this to say, hey, I can help out and do some different things. Okay? Chip, anything to add on this?
No, so you've done a great job.
Okay, RFIs customer from normal turnaround time, RFIs contract approach, answers RFIs have cost impacts. Okay, so when you look at an RFI, which I think I put one up here, go to my next one.
This is part of what you're turning over if you're away.
All the ASIs, yes, yes, they have part of the O&Ms is as-built that have all these notes transferred onto them, and then they also give copies of RFIs and ASIs.
So that don't ultimately stamp. It will become part of the CDs.
In this case, you don't have to stamp an RFI. If you're going to issue it as a sketch, it has to be stamped. Where you issue it as an ASI, yes, those sketches have to be stamped. So in this case, this is just supporting information, not actually modifying the documents. Okay, good question. Just pass, those are just copies of what they look like from an R5 standpoint. And if you want, these are just copies of the sketch that we just looked at. You can pass those around as well, so you can kind of take a brief look at those. Okay, sketches, before we go on, sketches. This is a sketch title block we use, right? Okay, everybody's kind of seen this hopefully at some point. If not, it's on the server, correct, Jeff? Okay, and it's in a template now or no?
It's in the Revit template.
In the Revit template as well? Okay, so this is a, yes, sir.
Is that the same for CAD or?
What?
Don't do that.
Try not to digress, okay? We're trying to move forward. I don't, is it the same thing for CAD?
It's just a little bit different, yeah.
Okay, a little bit different CAD. Okay, this is a, what are the two sizes we issue sketches?
8.5 by 11, 11 by 17.
Boom! 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17. She's hungry for a gift. I don't have them yet. I'll get that. I can see it. Like she's hungry for one.
Full sheet? If it's a brand new sheet?
Sketches. Sketches. So the key word is sketches there. Anytime we create an ASK down here, right, that is independent of a sheet. So what is this contractor going to do with this information? This is old school. We've got to see who's going to date themselves. Staple or tape it. Correct. It's called posting a set. Okay, they actually post a set. So they'll take this. So what is key information we have to have on here? Has to be to scale, right? If they're going to post a set, the idea is they'll take literally a 30 by 42 set, and they can cut out. I mean, in the old days they did this. They cut this thing out, they write around it, boom, put it right over top of the drawing, and either glue it, tape it, whatever, and then boom, now you've actually changed that drawing in the field. It can be issued as a different color. That's their choice nowadays digitally, but yes. Okay, so we have to make sure that the scale we're showing, which is 3/16, my favorite scale. Wow, beautiful. Love that scale. Okay, that might as well be NTS, right? So 3/16 here. It has to match the exact drawing we're putting on top of. I can't go to a quarter here and then the other drawing is an eighth. Won't work. The other thing is we need to make sure we reference our sheet. Reference sheet 1A1.2. Okay, we gotta make sure. Some of you guys get lazy and you try to do two of these on one, right? Kind of get cute with me, right? You're trying to say, hey, I want to try and maybe reference the door schedule that's on an A8, but I'm also going to give you a revised floor plan that's on an A1. Okay, all right, I'll play ball, but you got to play ball too, okay? You got to make sure we list both sheets down here so they know that both sheets are relative. And you should also do a subtitle underneath that title that says A1 versus A8, so they can quickly reference those two, okay? Ideally, if we're not crunched for time and you're not pulling your hair out, it'd be nice to create two different SKs, okay? That'd be the ideal way, but I get it, okay? I do get it, I've been there, okay? Still there. So, any information on, or any questions on a sketch? Next thing you ask is, how do we modify a sheet? How do we modify a sheet in the field? Now you guys are getting really lazy on me. But that sheet's going to take me 6 sketches. Can I just do one sheet? Yes.
Well, no. What if you're bringing in a sheet that they've asked you to divide out some information? For example, I've done a structural one where they show the floor plan and the wall framing. They wanted to divide it into 2. They wanted to see the wall framing, which was actually the structure for the floor above, separated out so you've seen it. Yeah, well, it's a story. So.
Very unique. I never let a contractor tell me how I'm supposed to draw on the first statement. So, but that's okay.
No, it was about how to properly convey the information. It was early on in the first one.
Okay. So yes, I
But
did.
it was a unique, brand new sheet.
Okay. So first question: how do we modify existing sheets? We need to put what behind the letter or the name? R, right? Now, don't get too cute with me because there could be an R1, R2, R3, R4, or 5 because we just know stuff changes quite a bit. We'll make sure if we're going to do A9.2, it turns into A9.2R. That's how we're going to issue that sheet.
Wait a minute, you don't just do the revision cloud and the revision thing in the title block?
No, you need to make sure that that's a whole new sheet that was issued on top of it.
You're talking about the title of the file in the computer.
And well, the number on the sheet. The number
And the number on the title block sheet.
Correct.
But we're just replacing the
different from.
sheet, right?
No, they need to have reference for that first sheet. So that what they'll do is they'll take that sheet and they'll slide it right behind it.
Because, okay, So maybe, like we issued a package of revisions that the owner requested. So it was just certain sheets out of the drawing set. So you're telling me each one of those sheets should have had an R after it?
Say that one time.
So owner requested some changes, so we issued a packet in ASI.
This is during
with
construction?
Various drawing sheets, yeah.
Okay.
Various drawing sheets that had revisions clouded. We had a revision 2 or whatever.
Like a Delta 1, Delta 2, Delta 3?
Yeah. I did not change the sheet. Remember,
Okay.
I was supposed to add an R.
Ideally, you should change those sheets.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you talking about
The city won't let you do that.
Are you talking
I
about
don't want to re-upload you.
changing it here, or just putting revision 1 here?
No, well, actually, we're referring to, one of these has a,
Just, yeah, the city makes you re-upload with the same name. If you use the project docs or whatever it means.
Right.
we're talking about a full sheet. These are sketches. We're talking about a full sheet.
Right, but
Yeah, down there, yes, we should put an R in that, down there.
So like instead of sheet A100, it would be A100R.
Yes.
That makes, okay.
but
It's new to me.
I understand when we do our self-cert stuff, they want this to stay the same,
Yeah, we
but
can't.
then they, because
you're uploading.
because it's,
Yeah.
it has to be frozen in time, and we're making a revision to that frozen project,
So we
or
just
that
cloud,
approved project.
do the revision project, but then we have to leave everything else the same.
Because the way they
that's
upload
that's
is
a special circumstance, right?
Yeah, and that, I mean, I get, what we're talking to the field, I guess, if we're dealing with the city, that could be a little, we could look at that on a different
Yeah.
basis,
Yeah.
because we're just talking about how we're tracking in the field.
And with the building reflection drawing and they're amending the contract, the city is second here.
Yeah, the idea is once we're building with a permit, so we shouldn't have to go back to the city, but I get it for self-cert, there's some specialty cases there that they're changing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the R thing is new to me, so we got. So if you revise it, then do you go R2 or?
Okay, submittals and shop drawings, yes, you do.
Yeah.
That's why you gotta put an R1 usually to start it off, you just never know. Okay, so submittals, multiple consultant reviews, ARC review critical, comparative specs, identify approved equals. These are things you need to be thinking about if a submittal comes across your desk, right? First thing is hey, let's go back to the spec, compare it to the spec, see if we make sure it matches what they're submitting on. Then if it isn't, we need to understand if it's an approved equal. Okay, and it's not necessarily our determination to do that. They need to provide this information to show that. Okay, ARC review is critical. Everything that goes out of this office as a standard is that architectural is to review. I don't care if it has nothing to do with architectural from a, let's just say a plumbing fixture or whatever. We still need to review it. What our standard moving forward is that if we have a limited review on it, we at least stamp it and match comment to what the engineer did. So at least say that both those are going out the door with both stamps on top of it. Okay? So make sure, a lot of times you at least need to take your eyes and do a brief look through it, just in case anything stands out that says, hey, they don't think about design or they're not thinking about some different parts of it. Okay? Multiple consultant reviews. We do the last review. So as soon as it comes in the door, we kick it out to all the consultants, make sure they're reviewing it, make sure you kick it out together. So if structural's reviewing it and electrical's reviewing it, make sure they get together. Then we come back, we compile it in, Kimberly can help compile it in. We put our stamp on top of it for the last review and we're off and running. Okay? That's why it takes sometimes 2 weeks for submittals. That's what they give for turnaround time is 2 weeks. Ideally, we want to do it quicker for smaller jobs, but that is the standard because sometimes it just takes that. Yes?
Are we supposed to review it before we send it out to consultants?
So technically what you need to look on the top is there should be a stamp from the contractor. Okay, so everyone that comes in, they'll have a stamp that says, hey, McCarthy, Chase, whoever, we reviewed it to the standards and the drawings, we find it's compliable, boom. That's your first indicator. If it's not there, kick it back to the contractor, make sure they stamp it, boom. Once it gets in, don't slow down the information. Don't solve the problem and then feel good about telling someone. Sometimes we try and do that, right? Before I tell someone, I want to make sure I have an answer. No, we need to get out to consultants, get the discussion going, and then bring it back in, and we'll get it off. Because again, we have timelines, we have critical information going.
Sometimes I've had to, it'll come back from a consultant and I see that they've missed a question or so then I can send it back to them.
Sure. But don't do it before you send it.
Yeah, exactly.
And never take for granted what they're sending back is complete either. We need to make sure that we read it, we challenge it, And even if you're confused, here's the thing, if we can't understand the response, the contractor is most likely not going to be able to understand the response. So read it critically, say this, what are you trying to say here? Call them up, have a conversation, can we rewrite it? Or, you know what, that makes sense, I can pass that information on verbally. Okay? Shop drawings. So a lot of times, give me a couple examples of shop drawings.
Steel shop drawing.
Steel, very good.
Storefront.
Storefront, very good. What was that?
Finger bolts?
All part of steel, yep, sure. Casework, very good. Millwork, okay. Anything else?
Doors.
Doors and hardware, that'll make you drive you nuts, right? Doors and hardware, that's a 3-day process just going straight through it. Okay, so yes, all those are different types of shop drawings. A lot of times they come in full format, right? They're full sheets, they're not just an 8.5 by 11. So we got to make sure we print them out large when we get them sometimes if we can't see them on the computer nicely, so we can actually get all the information out. Right? They do take a little bit longer, keep that in mind, and they do take some coordination. So if you need to put your headphones on and go find a quiet spot, go do it, because that's what it takes. Okay?
We have a metal building submittal for 3 points, and it's so tough to read those, because when we went out to the site, we said, where did that beam come from? We had no idea that beam existed. Yeah, until it was there, because they do theirs as if it's in a rector set. And
right.
So you have a hard time seeing where everything goes.
And don't feel dumb. If you don't understand it, it's okay. Believe me, these sometimes these are Chinese. Sometimes these are languages we don't even understand. And if we need to go talk to someone else, or even call up the engineer and say, hey, what am I looking at here? Can you kind of tell me a little bit? Don't be afraid. That's why we pay them, okay? All right. It's the last line of defense. Does anyone understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay, so literally the shop drawings, once we approve these I should have done it wrong. Once we review these shop drawings, they are going into fab. Money is being spent. Big dollar amounts. You can have $1 million of a steel package. Okay? Boom. And those are the first things that come through the door. And you approve them, they're off and running. Okay? So money's being spent. So this is the last line of defense. So all those little ticklers you have in your mind, those little notes you've written down that says, oh, I need to double check to make sure that's the clearance from a mechanical, or do we have a pitch pocket there, or what's the parapet height there? Did I get that detail? Those things need to come together on that shop drawing.
No, the contract says that we're not responsible, but if you have to depend on that contract, you have lost. You've created a.
That was a spoiler alert, so just make sure you got notes there.
Yeah, the contractor will hate you, and you'll hate them, and it's just negative.
We have the legal disclaimer, but it's not going to help the video.
Yeah, it's not going to help. Yeah.
You
Like the fun when you're
mentioned something that was kind of huge right there. Because they approve, you come back to review. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that for
Yes.
all of us to kind of grasp? Because we don't approve review.
Okay, so we're kind of grouping these two comments right here with Bob and Richard together here. So Freudian slip, I said approved, okay? We actually say reviewed. We don't actually have the word approved in one of our boxes. However, in our mind, we are approving, okay? That's what you have to have mentally, because literally you are saying, yes, all this information seems to be accurate, matching what our intent was, matching the drawings, okay? But from a liability standpoint, we can't say the word approved. It has to say reviewed, because again, from insurance, all that, we're opening ourselves up for a can of worms.
And contractors love that word reviewed versus approved.
Correct. And remember,
They want you to approve it.
who created the shop drawings?
Well, their stamp does have an approved box on it, so don't use their stamp.
No, never, no, yes. Don't need to sign the line. Sometimes they give these little signature lines. No. Don't get caught in that.
Yeah.
Don't get caught in that, okay? Who creates shop drawings?
Then.
Correct. Them, right? Subcontractors. We create contract documents. That's what we're held to. We didn't create the shop drawings. What happens when you get sometimes subs who say, hey, can I have your CAD base so I can create shop drawings? No. Okay? It's just taking our drawings, putting their title block on and shooting back to us. No. You need to take some time to look at that. Now, when we're doing Revit, we're doing some C4R sharing, totally different concept. Okay, but in the old days, they'd say, hey, just give me your drawings and I'll just send it right back to you. No, that defeats the whole point. Okay, this is another set of eyes, both on the contractor, subcontractor level, that says this is our last line of defense. Yes, sir.
What about fire protection?
Great question, fire protection. So a lot of times we have fire protection brought in early, right? and we can either use them as a consultant, and they actually do our drawings, and then the subs will do their drawings, and they compare them, and then we pay double, and then we say, here, go build it. Okay? There's a big argument who's who and who. Or we do a design build process, which is where we have the contractor, which is typical these days. We take the subcontractor, they'll take our base, give it to them, they'll put their fire sprinkler, fire alarm on top of it, and then they'll submit those. What are we looking at when they submit those?
That it's gone through the fire marshal before it ever gets to us.
Because they have to do a deferred submittal, a lot of times, correct? What else?
Actually, I think we have to, doesn't it have to go through us before it goes in for the personnel?
Typically, from a cost standpoint, we want to review it first, because if we make any changes, it's going to impact their costs before they submit it to the fire.
The city wants us to review it first. But also, we just look for basically kind of head locations and sites, make sure it's, recessed or drop or whatever.
Very good. We don't have to be experts on everything. That's not our expertise. Don't try and be an expert. If we act like an expert, that's when we get in trouble. Okay? All we're looking for is architectural. Okay? Aesthetics. Hey, where did you put your fire alarm panel? Is it really, do you have to put it on that wall right in front of my logo behind my reception desk? Is that really needed? Not really ideal. Can we just move it over to this wall? Be a lot more conducive. Yeah. Okay. That's what we're looking for. Are you using smoke beams? Can you use beam detectors instead of drops? Is there different options we can do? Because architecturally, we're trying to, like here, would we want to put something in the middle of this room at the top of this bulb? No, architecturally not ideal. Beam detection across this would probably be a little better, right? Because now we can say beam detection, they shoot a laser, boom, aesthetically, this keeps us all clean, especially if there's a Michelangelo up there, did Sixteen Chapel, definitely don't want anything in the middle of that thing, right? So aesthetically, that's what we're looking for. Okay, same thing with fire protection. Our sprinklers, they don't think 3D. They'll run our piping right through this thing and say, "Oh, I didn't know that was a barrel."
Right underneath an awning where it's
Right?
exposed.
Right underneath an awning, it's exposed. Challenge them. It's okay. It's okay to say, "Hey guys, I'd rather have you do a main branch this way and finger out into the space." Okay?
That's the danger of when you send it to plumbing and they send it back reviewed, and if we don't look at it for architectural, we got a pipe running through the bulb.
Well, actually, mommy doesn't want to review this.
No, they don't. No, they have to want to
They're
do
just
it.
like,
Only doesn't want to see
Alright.
it.
It's in their spec, though.
No, it's not. No.
no.
Most of them will say they're gonna farm it out anyways.
Wire
they're
line
gonna
Like
service.
Neil said, it's
It's
basically
already
design
built.
build.
Literally designed built.
Who writes the spec for the sprinkler system? Are you talking sprinkler system? What are we talking about?
Yeah, what pipe? We're talking about
Yeah,
pressure.
that's in the plumbing engineer's specification.
No.
We just put on their sprinkler system and that's it? No, there has to be
Contractor's
I
responsibility.
mean, so for basis, there's a general, and
The code criteria should be in the,
We have
Spec.
code criteria.
yeah.
That's on our cover sheet.
You don't have a spec without a heads and all that stuff?
So we do. So that has changed a little bit more watered down with CMARs, but we do have a standard spec that's inserted like our hard.
If we're hard, it.
Yeah, our hard bid.
So from a CMAR approach, a lot of times they'll look at.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yes, really.
But you're right. Yes,
hard
Lisa.
to keep track.
But I want to clarify, shop drawings can be part of submittals, right?
Yes, there's a little difference there. Yes, correct. Technically, these all fall into submittals,
Yeah.
but a shop drawing is just a bigger format, larger. It has usually it's drawings that are to be created. Submittals could be just data, information, cut sheets, things like that. Shop drawings get a little bit larger, a little bit bigger, a little bit more
Product
information.
samples.
They're actually being created by a designer usually.
All shop drawings are submittals, but not all submittals are shop drawings.
Correct. That's
They all go
correct.
on a submittal log.
Yeah.
Oh, last one. I've seen a couple of these come through. Okay, no questions, directives only. Okay, when we do a review, I understand there may be questions. Those need to be handled via a phone call or an email prior to releasing shop drawings. We cannot issue questions. We're professionals. They're paying for us for the answers. Okay, so if we say, oh, you could do this, or you do this, or what do you think about doing this? Okay, we issue directives only. Okay, does that make sense? Because otherwise, what's going to happen? We're going to get another shop drawing back. We're going to get another
Well,
question
we ask
back.
for a resubmittal.
Sure.
Resubmittal is fine. Totally different concept.
Yeah.
Okay, but so here's the other thing, like millwork. A lot of times we'll know they're going to have multiple submittals on millwork, just because it's that cumbersome. So it's okay if you know timely. I need to get through the gist of it, the bones of it, but I don't have all my details yet. That's fine. Just put revise and resubmit. We'll pick it up on that second submittal because again, it's the last line of defense. And if you don't have an answer for that time, you got to go talk to the owner about a color. Not a problem. Buy yourself some time. Resubmit it back.
Roof signage is a good one too.
Yes, room sign is the exact same thing, correct. Okay?
You know, one more other item on shop lines, you know, our stamp. The most important thing is, you know, the language of what's in stamp, how we as the architect, the line spread, the performance only, or we still put that, there's GCs themselves are still responsible for getting it done and all that. I think that's what our, the statement of our shop says.
There it is, right there, too.
Yeah.
So review by architect implies neither approval nor disapproval. Responsibility rests solely with the general contractor per specifications. That's what our statement says.
Right.
Reviewed and noted, submitted, resubmit, return for contractor review, rejected. Those are the options, 5 options we put up there. Okay, you stamp one of those. 9 out of 10 times, if everything looks good, we still put reviewed and noted. Find something to say on those dang things. Okay, there's always something to say.
It's a general comment.
Yeah, general comment. You know, field verify dimensions. Boom, we're done. Okay, good.
Verify the location of being so and so.
Yeah, just so we understand.
Good job.
Yeah, big stamp. Okay, this is our side. This is our side. This is the engineer side. They'd have a stamp in there, and they put it next to it. You can see their stamp is up top where it says, that's mechanical Mark McCarthy Building Company approved. So that's their stamp up there. So if it came back and didn't have that in the upper right hand corner, boom, reject it, send it back. We don't want to waste our time.
That goes back to the second one, which is return for contractor review, right?
We can do that. I don't even want to do that. I'm not wasting my time because literally it takes time in PDF to put these darn things on.
Fair enough.
No, you got a
You actually have to put the stamp on too, right?
No.
You just send it back.
No, I'm not logging it.
No.
I'm emailing back saying you don't got anything on this. I'm not logging
I
it.
don't want it sitting there in their exchange looking like I haven't acted on it.
Nope. It's not logged. Done. Okay.
It hasn't been submitted if it doesn't have a MBC stamp on it.
On the right, you can kind of see a shop drawings. This is kind of how they sometimes track it. Spec section. Everything's done by spec sections. That's how we track it. How we log it by spec sections. You'll slowly learn those. Believe me, those are hard to learn, but that's kind of what they call. Okay.
Manage your Keno systems, try to force.
Spoiler alert. Shop drawings are the final governing document for construction. True or false? Gotta raise your hand. Sue's up.
False.
False. False. You finally get something, Sue. I'm proud of you.
Yay. Signature award.
So VR.
Ah, nice.
Ooh. Okay.
There glasses.
It only shows shop drawings.
Yes. Reloaded. Okay.
And it's false because we're just reviewing someone else's drawings and we're not approving them.
Correct. From a liability standpoint, correct.
Contract documents are.
We've already issued what we're liable for, which is those contract documents we talked about. Okay, we're going to move into session 2. Construction documents, cover sheet, and code sheet. I'm going to go back to this image. What do we do as architects? What is our sole job as architects?
We make instructions.
Correct. We are IKEA. Okay? You can put SPS Plus right there. We do not build. We draw. Contractors build. And I know that seems simple, but we need to make sure that is ingrained to us down to the very bones of what makes us up. That is the only thing we can ever stand on, is our drawings. Not, I told you so. Not, I shot you an email. Not a conversation we had on the job site. Oh, I thought I picked that up. Are you sure that wasn't drawn that way? The proof is in the pudding. You go to the drawing, what does the drawing have on it? That's it. That's all we get. So you got to think about that. To make sure what we're sending out is accurate. Because that's what's going to go back to when crap hits a fan. That's what they're going to go back to. Okay?
Extra screws.
What is the preferred method for contracting a fee on a medium to large size project? This is a good question for you guys. I don't know if you think about this. How do we want to contract with the owner on a medium to large size project from construction cost?
You have to get something.
You made it really hard. A non-fixed fee?
Which would be called?
Flexible fee.
Time and material.
Hourly?
Good luck with that one.
Project based?
See what it is?
Procedure fee?
Percentage.
Percentage.
Percentage-based fee, right?
Record costs, you get more money.
I was wrong.
Why would we do that, Alan? Why do we want a percentage-based fee on a medium to large size project?
The cost goes up all the time.
Correct. If we do a lump sum, we a lot of times end up doing a lot of work for free.
Exactly.
Because we base it off of, i.e., my EBIT project we're working on right now. We got, what's
They're
that?
saying percentage of construction costs and then.
Yeah.
Come up with consultants pay percentage of that.
Yes, correct. That's how they work. Now a lot of times consultants don't do lump sums. They won't do percentages to us. They'll just do a lump sum, and we can control that gap difference there too. Okay. But for instance, my EBIT project, it was RFQ'd. We got submitted on. We won on a $15 million project. I submit my fee on a $15 million project. Here you go, guys. My lump sum. Ready to go? Yes. Oh, we're excited. Guess what that project is costing right now?
22. 22.
Oh, no.
$32 million.
I think we did a lump sum fee.
What's that?
So when we did the lump sum fee, did it state that it was tied to
Yes.
the 15 million?
It states that it was tied to 15 million with a note that it's going to be adjusted
Okay.
at final GMP to see the board. Okay? Let's really know this stuff, right? Right? That's 2 projects. Okay? That's what we got to think about. Okay? It can go down. Like if I'm at a percentage, it could go down. Yes, you're right. It could go down. Haven't seen it yet in my young career. Alan's shaking his head. He hasn't seen it yet in his young career. Okay?
I've seen it. It was a California job. The firm actually lost money on it.
You did? You saw the offer?
It was on Branchmore House High School when I was at HCA.
So one out of.
Basically, the client, we got ahead of the billing, and actually owed the client money at some point.
Oh, because something popped up or the budget came in?
No, it was right before the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a $200 million project, when it was too low, it was $100 million.
They were able to, and the contractor gave money back.
No, it was because
the architect did.
The architect did.
Oh, okay. So you're saying before it went to the GMP, they actually brought it back down. Gotcha. And that's a special case. That is, I can see that.
And I
It's
think
one of
that's
those, it's been 5
happened
years
here
of design.
maybe twice, and all that meant was for a few months of construction, we didn't build. And
There was a
then
year and a half,
finally-
it was myself and a CA that were basically working without bringing income to the office.
I don't recall that we've ever had to give anybody back. We had to delay billing because we got prepaid is what.
No, I
Or you don't bill.
don't think they gave money back, I think they got ahead of
Don't
the
bill.
billing. And there was actually, there was a year and a half where we were working, but we couldn't bill to the client.
Yeah.
Your fee was based.
What
on
defines
something
a
you didn't
medium
spend.
project and a small project?
Oh, good question. Good question. No, those are different sizes. Those are based off of how big our firm is. We're considered a medium-sized firm right now. We're about 37, 38, right around there. So medium-sized firm. Once you get over 50, you start to get a larger-sized firm. But a good-sized project for us is a medium size is 6 to 10 million kind of range. Anything north of 10 million is considered a larger project for us. Now, there's some big companies out there like a DLR or a Smith Group, those ones. That probably a 15 to 30 may be considered a medium-sized firm job because they're looking at 100 million for maybe a bigger size job. So just as relative to the size of the firm. Okay, that's a great question. Okay, concept here. I don't need you to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want you to understand. A $20 million construction budget, our typical fee, industry-wide, is typically 6%. Some are going to get more aggressive. Some are going to get down to 5.5%, 5.75%. Some are going to try and go 7%. It's in there. It's all negotiable. But on average, if you ask anyone, you say 6%, they're not going to fall off their chair.
That's our fee to all the consultants.
Correct.
All the consultants.
Correct. So that's our A&E services. That's our contract. Now, there's negotiations, what's in and out of that. Sometimes civil's not in that. Sometimes landscape's not in that. Any kind of survey, soil testing, that's all out of it. printing, all that. But our basic services, when it comes to our basic services, is at 6% fee. Okay? So you're looking at that saying $1.2 million for what? Bingo. Instruction. For instruction. For drones. So you see that pretty paper sitting back on those islands and on your desks? That's what they're paying for. And you look at those are $1.2 million. What you think about that, guys? Are you going to buy anything like that in your lifetime? Maybe when you get Alan's age and you have a mansion.
Invest in our 401ks.
Okay? So just think about that.
So this guy here.
This guy, right here. This paper right here. That's that right there. $1.2 million. The client is paying for that information. Okay? That's why I tell you, it's got to look pretty. Because believe me, you're not going to buy a diamond if it doesn't look pretty. But that's the type of money we're spending on this stuff.
Don't let anything go out that doesn't represent that.
Okay? That's what you got to think of. I know it's hard to comprehend, but that is what we do. We do drawings, and we do damn good ones, because that's what they pay us for. Okay? So think about that as we start to move through our format, through our graphics, on what stuff looks like and what goes out the door. Okay? Okay, with that in mind, my little info spotlight, we're going to do a design competition, drawings as artwork. Every year, at the end of the year, we're going to do top 3 sheets of the year. Okay? And we're going to vote on them. We'll put them up. And we're going to have a little competition that says, hey, look, we'll go get the top 20, whatever, and we'll do a little vote. And whoever wins the top 3, we'll do something special. It ain't going to be VR. It's going to be a lot bigger than that, trust me. Okay? Maybe 2 VRs, yeah.
So do you have a criteria yet, or are we coming up?
I haven't got there yet. We got a little while to figure it out. But think about that. Okay? Think about that. So we'll just take one sheet, any format, could be a cover sheet, could be a plan, could be a site plan, could be details, whatever it is. I want you to think about that because I want you to take care of every sheet you put together. Because that's ultimately what we're going to be looking at. We're going to say top 3 sheets of the year.
And this is contract document sheets.
Contract document sheets. Not presentation. Yeah, we're not looking at presentation. We're not looking at anything else. It's actual physical contract documents.
Since most people, well, more than one person that usually touches a sheet, how can you tie ownership to one sheet to a user?
Beautiful question.
Whoever's name's on it.
Beautiful question. There is an opportunity to put your name on, like Paul said, right? There's down a little lower right-hand corner. I have.
Geez, why do all these sheets have Paul's name on it?
Yeah, all the markers just get them.
I'm gonna lay all of my name on. I see how you guys want to show them off. Okay. Yes, there's a drawn by and a reviewed by. Okay, I get why we do that. But at the end of the day, for our internal purposes, there'll be an honesty part to sit down and say, hey, if it's a team effort, and it was a team effort to do it, more willing to take care of it. Okay, we'll know who put those sheets together at the end, and we'll be able to talk about it and we'll say it. All right? It's definitely a process. I get it. Everybody puts their hands on it at some point. Okay.
Cool. Good idea.
One more thing, is there a communication tool as well?
Absolutely.
That's the main thing. If you can't read, if you look at the sheet and you're confused, imagine the contractor out in the sun, the whole state of mind.
That's when he puts his finger in out hat on them.
So this is, we're going to just look at some sheets right now. So this is our typical kind of approach that we currently have for a cover sheet, a code sheet, and then another code sheet. So it's kind of a grouping of what we say, how we actually get code information out. Okay. These are our 3 sheets that we get code information out on. Okay. So I want you to just kind of look at those and kind of get a sense of what we're trying to show. So a lot of this is information. We've got a sheet index. We've got some project data. We've got a location map, a vicinity map. We got board of directors, design team. I know some of you don't even know those exist because we never update those for crying out loud. We got to make sure we update board members because they die. Sometimes they
Except
don't
looks like
get,
every time.
sometimes they don't get voted back in.
They switch positions.
Right. They switch positions.
Chandler did that.
Or districts, the last thing I want is another district's board members on here, right? Okay, so make sure we're looking at all the information. This is pretty static, this abbreviations, that really doesn't change too much. I would love to go through that and see if it's even applicable on certain layout, but that's a lot of information there. General legend. And then over here, we talk about, we gotta make sure we change this because that's where we actually issue the sets. First city submittal, second city submittal, progress sets, that's the information change there. The original seal date stays the same because that's how we track it, right? And then if we need to update it, we do it in here. I'm sorry, the date here stays the same, the original one, and we update it with the seal. And then we have the job number and the sheet. This is where you have your revisions, your deltas. So if you have delta 1, delta 2, delta 3. Make sure we give names to those deltas and there's rhyme or reason. VE coordination, city comments, those kind of things we need to make sure we have on there so they can track them. If it's an owner addition or whatever, just so we can actually do revisions, we can track it that way. Okay? General information that way.
A lot of times on the cover sheet, we also have deferred submittals and special submittals. Maybe it didn't apply there, but.
Beautiful. Good leader. Okay. So, another cover sheet. Not our office, not our standards. Additional information in there. Like Sue was talking about, special inspections. Fire marshal submittal. Deferred submittals. This is information to have good on a cover sheet because what does that give the reviewer? They don't got to flip a page. They're not going through the set looking for information and already writing down questions and then having to cross them out because they found them 4 pages later. Okay? We want to get as much code information as possible up front in a reasonable information. The other thing we've done, building data. We do have building data on that one. Read off what's on that building data, just as a top one.
This down here.
Project data?
Here's occupancy indication. Oh, here we go. Really small text. It has the codes, scope of work, location.
Okay, so codes, which is relevant. A lot of cities want to make sure you got the codes right in the cover sheet. But the other thing is, it's always good to do a little snippet of what we're trying to show in the code sheet. So in essence, right here, we got occupancy, we got construction type, max heights, proposed areas, we have some floor areas, all the applicable codes, a little project scope of work. If we can write that, we know the project. If we can't write that, we don't know the project. Okay, so it's good to give them a little information in here. Talks about the different scopes. Helps them understand what they're looking at before they start diving into it. Okay, so it's nice to give a nice tidbit, and then have these, be sure, let's get some deferred submittals, fire marshal, and special inspections on there, because again, that's what it is. Special inspections, just to give you an idea, they're usually, you can go to the GSNs, the General Structural Notes, S sheets, on SO1, he'll list out, or she'll list out, I should say, they'll list out, the different types of inspections required. They actually have a section on there that lists them, so you can just copy those right over. A lot of times we also add in hoods. If we have a type 1 hood for any kind of kitchen component, that's on our side. We got to add that in. There's some other components in that. If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, just ask and we can help you find some different.
There might be electrical special inspections.
Correct.
And there might be like EFIS.
EFIS, if you have some of those, yep, for a 2-story up here, yep. Fire marshal, it just gives us general safety. You got to submit as a deferred submittal to the fire marshal, which would be our fire sprinkler, our fire alarm. A lot of times they'll do steel joists, they'll do some different ones, so we can list those playgrounds, if any playgrounds, things like that. Okay? There is artwork, so I love seeing artwork. I love seeing it. We have it up there. I love seeing it. It at least gives a presentation of what we're ultimately getting. Remember, this is the first thing of the $1.2 million we're going to see. Right? Make it look good. All right?
Do we do that on every single project, even if it's a shoebox?
Even if it's a shoebox, metal construction, burner building, yes, we put it up there.
Not a modular building.
Okay.
My modular building?
Yes.
My cover sheet is my code sheet.
If you can't find a cool moment in your building, it ain't worth doing a stinking building.
It's the floor.
Okay? I don't care if it's a shot of the restroom and you're walking into it. Beautiful shot. Put it up there, okay? Right? Something.
Not my,
2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. A couple other things. These are just run through a couple other sheets. Code sheet. A couple things on this code sheet. Those code sheets. those are a combination of 2 code sheets on the bottom there. These are a couple different looks of code sheet. What I want you to keep in mind with code sheets, aesthetics is everything. When I initially look at a code sheet, boom, it should pop off the page at me. I shouldn't have to look through and read all the information on the side of the sheet, plus what's on the plan. Think about that graphically. Get some hatches in there. Get some flow in there so they can quickly understand where the corridors are versus the classrooms versus the office space versus all that. Quickly identify that. Help them understand that. Okay, because this is what's going to, first thing they're going to look at and how it's going to pop off the page. Okay, it does not have to be to a certain scale. It should be to scale, but it doesn't have to be, oh, it has to be the same size as my floor plan. It does not need to be the same size as the floor plan. Especially if you look at the bottom one. Crying out loud. If you look at the bottom one, it's nice. It's a 3-story building. Able to stack them on top of each other. Be able to read it. You can quickly see where the stairs are, where you're coming down, exiting. All those questions are quickly answered. Okay? That's what we kind of want to look towards as we move through this. The other thing is, there's a lot of times there's details. If there's just 1 or 2 details, whether it's a Knox box, whether it's a fire extinguisher, whether it's a 2-hour wall, 1-hour wall type, okay, maybe we need to do a whole code detail sheet. The less they got to go hunting through the set to find a specific detail, let's pull it to them, because we can do that a lot quicker than they can, and put it right next to the sheet so we can cross-reference it.
You get a happier reviewer in the end, this will work.
Absolutely. Plus the first thing they're going to say is, okay, they know what they're doing.
I usually right behind the code plan, do the fire rated assembly
Yep,
sheet.
perfect. UL assemblies, all that kind of stuff. Yep, absolutely. So keep that in mind as we kind of move through it. Make sure we're using our symbols over here, kind of different topics, occupancies, exiting. And as you start to get in that deeper, we have exit signs on here, we have panic, we have egress, we have remote locations for distances, so fire rated walls. Does code stop at the building?
But sometimes if it has multiple buildings, you need a code site.
That's the areas where you're exiting people into.
Correct. Yeah. Code does not stop at the building, right? We need to think about it. We need a code sheet for the site. We need to know that if we're going to have multiple buildings. And it's our responsibility when we exit a building, where do we got to get the occupant? Public way or public right of way, okay? Is the way it considers it. So that is not, we get them out of the building and we're done with our job. From an ADA standpoint, it is our job to get them all the way out to the curb, the sidewalk on the street. We have to get them that far. So that's why you see when I exit a building, I'm going to hit this thoroughway, I'm going to get you out. There's no distance restrictions there, but we have to have a clear path and they can figure it out. Okay?
That's where they get picked up.
Correct. Well, because the idea is the fire department wants them away from the building. They don't want them standing right next to it because then they're part of the fight. They got to get them away from the building. Now in schools, when we do schools, it's a little different because we don't want the little kiddos running out to the street. Right. So we want to make sure we get them back to the fields where they're fenced in, where location. Now that needs to be shown on the code sheet as well. Indicates pedestrian egress route to secured area. So we can actually identify. And then that secured area actually has an occupant load. You actually have to be square, and it's got to make sure it can handle the full occupant load that's going in there. Okay? It usually can. 90% of the time it can. There's a few times it can't if you take them out from the field. And then there's a distance you got to be away. It's the height of the building plus a little bit of safety, usually 60 feet, depending on how high these buildings are. But you have to show that distance away too. Okay? It does not, whole surface does not need to be ADA accessible. It can be grass. But you do need a small portion that is ADA accessible because there should be a certain number that have that in case they sit out there. Okay?
I always do that, so I haven't done it before, but I haven't done it on elementary school, so.
A lot of times if you're able to show the right of way, they don't necessarily ask for that, because, but the more veteran inspectors, they'll actually ask for that because they know your fire drills are taking them all out here. You're not taking them out here.
I've had them do exiting for my tennis court.
Yes. Okay. The other thing is panic hardware. Is panic hardware stop at the building?
No.
No, we got to get you all the way out. So we actually have panic hardware and gates, right? Because if I'm taking everyone down to the courtyard, if I'm taking them all down to the courtyard and I put you a chain link combination lock on that gate, boom. Yeah. They're trying to run back through the building to get out now. That's when mass chaos happens. So now we can't just put panic and say, okay, here's your 3-foot door. No, we got to take in that whole egress body to make sure we got 8 doors. I've seen it out there now where people are putting panic hardware on fire lane gates. Is that acceptable?
No.
No! I don't know who invented that. That's crazy. I don't know how they got it through the city. It's absolutely asinine. You cannot push a 20-foot wide gate open in an emergency situation. It does not work. So sometimes it doesn't make sense. You're like, man, I gotta. All this other stuff, we got to create some of that. We can tie that back in with some of Jeff's lessons. Okay?
How many of these toolbox sessions are we?
Till you guys tell me don't do it anymore. So it could be 2. No, really, it's just we're going to dive into different sections as we move through, and obviously we're going to have different focuses as we move through. There's been some requests, like so if Drew does another Survey Monkey, you know, he does leave little parts as if you want to dive into some different, make sure you put in there if you got something interesting you want to put it in. Okay.
And where, if we want to access these, where do we get them?
We're putting them on the server.
So they're on YouTube, but they're also gonna be on the server. I'm gonna give you guys the YouTube link that you just have to click the link and then I'll have all these for everybody. It's not for anybody else that can see it. It's only if you use that
When
link.
you say YouTube, it's the actual PowerPoint and stuff
Yeah.
like.
So it's the PowerPoint and it's a video in the bottom corner of us talking. So you can hear the actual feedback.
Where on the server is it?
It's in the promotions drive. I'll send it out after this. So we can have that.
Anything else? Good stuff. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you. Save the day.